It's been 1 week of training camp and the Pelicans are already dealing with injury concerns. I'm here to calm you down just a little bit. Plus, Larry Nance Jr. signs his extension. It's a great deal for the team, but that means someone else might be gone. It's Monday's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Monday, and thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all. We're back to 5 days a week, breaking down everything you want to know about the team. Great first week being back to 5 days a week. The interview with Aaron Summers on Friday. Everyone loved that one. If you want the inside scoop on training camp, give it a listen. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs help you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. So today, we got a contract extension for Larry Nance Jr. We knew that was coming. There's no big surprise there. But more importantly, and we'll get into that and what it means for the rest of the roster, we got some injury news. Notice you didn't see Brandon Ingram or CJ McCollum doing a whole lot at the Pelicans open practice. Injury concerns already. For such a promising season, this isn't exactly what we wanted to start the year off of. Like, could we have made it past a week? Could we have gotten like 2 weeks into the first preseason game after what the summer Pelicans went through in Summer League out in Vegas? Like, come on. We need a break from all of this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, it's reared its head a little bit here. So you've got Willie Green saying in post-practice availability that Brandon Ingram has some soreness in a toe. He may or may not miss preseason games. They don't know yet. And then CJ McCollum had ankle soreness, but he practiced fully. Those are two of the three key players. Those are not names we want to be hearing about injured. But it's also two of the more veteran guys on the team as well. And that's why I don't think you really need to worry too much about this. So first and foremost, it's day-to-day with both of them. If there's like an injury designation on someone, that's about as good as it gets other than just hearing they will play. And when it comes to a guy like CJ McCollum, does he need training camp? Right? Like, this is like Tom Brady not being with Tampa Bay in training camp and those sorts of things. He doesn't need to be there. There's plenty of these guys that don't need to be there either. And that's kind of what you're seeing with CJ McCollum. He's there, but if he sits out, if he doesn't do much, it's fine. 10 years in the league, 11 years, you know what you're going to get from him. He's a veteran. He's done it all, and he's a very good player. He doesn't need to kind of really figure it out. He played with this team last year. You'd like him to build some chemistry with Zion, but Zion really does fit with almost every single person. And we've heard from Aaron Summers, from Antonio Daniels on Twitter and others covering the team that Zion's getting along great with everyone and already has chemistry pretty much built up with everyone because it's just really easy to do that with him. So there's no huge concern here about anything like that with CJ McCollum. For Brandon Ingram, look, you'd like him practicing, but we know what we're going to expect from Brandon Ingram this season. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to come close to 24 points per game. 5-6 assists per, a little bit higher would be cool. And then give you, 6-7 rebounds per game. He's going to shoot incredibly well. He'll shoot better from three this year. And he's going to be as consistent at putting up all-star level numbers as he has been the past 3 years here in New Orleans. He'll be fine. You'd like maybe a little bit more run for him, given that he had surgery in the offseason on one of his fingers, and it kept him, stopped him from working out and kind of playing as much pickup ball and all sorts of things that he might normally do. But he still organized the training camp out in California for the team, the secret training camp, the training camp, and he's playing. He'll be fine. There's no real big concern there. If he misses a game, that's fine. If he misses all of preseason, that's fine too. It really doesn't matter. When you hear these injuries, it doesn't sound like it's a big deal. It's better to have these guys healthy and ready to go for opening night against the Brooklyn Nets than a preseason game against the Chicago Bulls, which is at 8:30 tomorrow. We're already getting late night games, and it's preseason, but I will be up watching that, getting ready to break down everything we saw. First game for Zion in like 500 days or so. So I'm really excited about that. I hope you are as well. I hope you were excited if you were at the open practice too. That was a lot of fun. You saw Brandon Ingram really involved with the team. CJ McCollum really involved with the team. Same for Zion Williamson as well. He was incredibly involved with the team. Everyone was animated. The rookies in onesies singing karaoke as they always do was a great time. They didn't really need to scrimmage. They wanted to give those guys, an off day. Friday they were off as well, to just kind of have a light practice, do something for the fans. It was cool to meet a ton of you who were there. I said hi to a lot of people. I appreciate everyone who came up to say hi to me and all of that. Y'all don't need to ask for my autographs though. I promise you that. Great to see the players getting out there, interacting with the fans, trying to kind of build that connection, that bond. And it was also a really great day because Larry Nance Jr. signed his extension, 2 years, $21.6 million. Let's get into that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked on Pelicans. Not just what it means in terms of the deal, but why it's also a very good deal for the team. But it does mean there could be some roster changes coming in the future. Some point in the undetermined future. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked on Pelicans. Before we get to that, though, today's episode of Locked on Pelicans is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates out there. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. If it takes a while to hire someone or you just can't find the right people, that's costing your small business money. It's money you're leaving on the table. It's going to take you a while to ramp back up, get them on board, and get them going. You need the right person to make that all smooth and easy, and you need to do it quick. So you want to head to LinkedIn Jobs to create a free job post to make it super easy. Then what you can also do, you add your job and then the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And they also have simple tools like screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And they can do it all through LinkedIn to make it super easy for you. And it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all. No one else coming to you like that, breaking down everything you want to know about the team. Daily podcast, about 20 minutes long, a little bit longer if I have a guest sometimes, giving you the need-to-know thing that day. I am around the team. I'm going to be at all the games too. It's going to be a lot of fun, so please make sure Locked On Pelicans is your first listen today and every day. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend about the show. Leave a 5-star review with a comment. Number one thing, comment down below on YouTube if you want to support the show. There's no Patreon. This is just completely free. You want to support it? You don't need to give money. Just comment down below on YouTube and spread the word about Locked On Pelicans. Someone who could easily support Locked On Pelicans, though, is Larry Nance Jr. As I take a sip of water here. He had a really good Saturday with it being announced that he signed a 2-year, $21.6 million extension. So he's under contract this year and then 2 more additional years. This is a great deal for the Pelicans. It basically puts the average value at around $11 and then $10 million or so. Something, kind of in that range is what he's going to end up making. This is a good deal. This is a really good deal. 10.8 is the average annual value there. At age 29, this is not a guy that's going to command a lot of money. But he's a useful role player because he can play a small ball 5, and we'll touch on that in a second. He can play the 4. You can play him with other big men too, if you want to go with a jumbo lineup of him, Zion, and a center there. And I think that sort of flexibility and the ability to cover multiple positions and what it can do for the team defensively is well worth it. $10 million for a guy, that in the play-in tournament game against the Clippers gave you 14 points, 16 boards off the bench and was huge. His numbers aren't the most eye-popping things in the world. This is not a guy that you're 20 points from him, no problem, right? That's just never been who he is in his career. His career average is 8.1 points per game. He only has one season above 10 points per game, and it was at 10.1. But he's as solid of a player as it gets, I think, for a reserve guy that plays, 20-ish minutes per game. And we're expecting bigger things from Larry Nance Jr. this year. He said this is the first time he's been fully healthy in a while. So he feels like he's jumping higher, he's moving quicker, he just is a little bit more explosive, and that's going to help him build on the numbers that he put up last season. I love hearing things like that. This is a guy who also has some range from three. In Cleveland, where he spent the majority of his career, he shot 34.6%. That's not the worst number for a big man. He can hit a three if you need him to. So he's a reliable guy that covers multiple positions. And at that average annual value, it's a tradable contract in the future. They cannot trade him with it this year just because of the way the money works and some of the CBA stuff. But it's a tradable contract in the future, but I think they really like the locker room presence he brings, and I don't think they're going to really look to move him whatsoever. And he seems like he really does want to be here, and this continues the trend that I talked about. We did a whole show on of how CJ McCollum signing his extension is continuing the trend from Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and others who really seem to think there's something building here in New Orleans with this franchise that makes you want to be a part of it. We spoke to Larry Nance Jr. after the open practice, and he said things like, I know what, being a veteran, right? This will be the 7th year I think he's been in the league. He knows what he wants in a situation and what he doesn't want, what his likes and dislikes are. So for him to be like, okay, I want to be here. This is a guy that's well respected around the league. He can then come out and just play and be himself and wants to be a part of that. He can look around the league, talk to others, and be like, oh, I want to be there, or I wish I was doing this. He sees all of that and says, I want to be in New Orleans. That's powerful for a guy that, is taking probably less money to be here than he could have gotten had he hit the open market in a season. So for him to want to stay, to take, again, less money and leave some on the table, I think really speaks to what they're building in New Orleans. And I do think he's going to be a key piece for him this year. When he plays the 5, he's more of a small ball 5 than a 4. That's kind of the way I view him. That's what Mike Richmond thought of him from his time with the Portland Trailblazers too, and after watching him in Cleveland, that he really feels he's more of a small ball 5. That allows New Orleans defensively to really do a lot of things, and we're going to talk about the defense in a whole show this week because that's an area that I have concerns about. But it seems like when you run him at small ball 5, he can switch. He can guard out on the perimeter. Not elite at that, but he can play out there. So all of a sudden, you have guys, depending on the lineup that you throw out there, that can switch 1 through 5. We don't know if Trey Murphy's ready to be a small ball 5 yet. I think he could. We did a whole show on that. You should look that one up. But he has potential for all of that. Well, until he reaches that, you got Larry Nance Jr., who give you maybe not switching 1 through 5, but you have everyone in the lineup can then switch, and you don't need to worry about opponents hunting mismatches. That gives you a lot of flexibility defensively, an area that New Orleans needs to improve upon. So signing Larry Nance Jr., locking him in on this, and we knew this was a done deal for a while in some capacity. I think they needed to finalize a few things. Larry Nance Jr. might have needed to think it over for a short bit, really make sure this was the right situation for him. But once he did, this deal was done. Really great surprise for him, maybe not surprise for him, the rest of us at the start of the open practice when that was announced. But this is a guy that I think, is key in a sense. He's a role player, right? This is your 8th, 9th guy, 7th guy at best. That's a useful player to have, and for them to take less money to take that role means a lot here in what they're trying to build in New Orleans. This is why this team is so easy to root for, why so many people are excited. People are buying in like never before. And it's not just the fans, it's not just the city of New Orleans, it's the players too. That says a lot. This was a big deal for New Orleans to get this one done. All right, coming up next though. So this was happy for Larry Nance Jr. It might not be happy for others on the roster. Let's look at that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we do that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your football betting this season. So you can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, and analysis on every game that you can find, whether it's pro or college or the refs screwing your team over. go listen to Locked On Saints. I'm sure that's about to be like very lit. And so, as always, BetOnline remains your continued sports for all your sports wagering information with live betting, up to the minute scores for every sport out there. Seriously, you want to get in on the closeout of the baseball season, you can do it. MMA, boxing, golf, whatever it is you might want to make a little more interesting, BetOnline can do it. And if you want NBA futures, feeling good about Zion Williamson, watching him throw down dunks at the open practice, go get in on those MVP future odds. You're getting good value, I think, when it comes to Zion at plus 3,600. So head to betonline.net, or you can use your mobile device to get there. Betonline.net, BetOnline, where the game starts. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all, breaking down everything you want to know about this team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend about the show. Leave a 5-star review with a comment. And of course, if you want to get everything going on when it comes to the NBA, the association, make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview starting October 10th. A 6-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NBA season. You get the local team experts, including myself, the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network, that is Antonio Daniels, Odyssey, all combining into one ultimate NBA preview. Starting October 10th, search for Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You will see me on there on the episode covering the Pelicans. Okay. So Larry Nance Jr. signing an extension. Good for him. Let's lock in guys on this team. Let's make sure we get, everyone under years worth of contracts and all of that. No stress when it comes to free agency, all of those sorts of things. This was a good deal, right? But it means people are going to be odd people out. And when you look at Larry Nance Jr. taking this and likely being a backup 4, backup 5 for this team, where's that leave a guy like Jaxson Hayes? I'm really not sure. Everyone I've talked to is not really sure how he's going to be used this season. Does he have a role? Where do his minutes come from? He started last year at the 4. You know who's starting at the 4 this year? Zion Williamson. So does that mean that Jaxson Hayes comes off the bench? I don't know. He was extension eligible this offseason. Obviously, none of that went down, didn't get done, so he's going to be a restricted free agent after this. So the Pelicans still, are in control of his future. But he played 20 minutes per game last year. Do you expect it to be above that or below that? Let me know in the YouTube comments. That's a good one for today. I'll pin that one. Do you expect more or less than 20 minutes for Jaxson Hayes during the regular season? I feel like it's going to be less. Are you going to play him over Larry Nance Jr.? I'm not sure. He had to get very limited minutes in the postseason because at times he was unplayable, but I don't think he was as bad as some people made him out to be. And I know some people really wanted to kind of use him as a scapegoat, and that was not the case at all for why they lost that series. But his minutes dropped to 13.8. I feel like that's probably a little bit closer to it. I know people love the potential he has, but he's still just a raw big man. And one of the things that he said in media day, and this always worries me when it comes to bigs saying something like this for a little bit, right? He said they're working on him shooting the 3, which good. Everyone should try and have that in their repertoire and, playing in the NBA in 2022. But a big man who's an explosive finisher, a rim running big who can be good in the pick and roll in the dunker spot, do you want to put him 24 feet from the hoop? I don't. What does that say about how they're going to use him or the lack of an idea on how to use him? And so with Larry Nance Jr. signing that extension and the Pelicans really committing to him for the future, I think that makes the future around Jaxson Hayes much more slight. I don't think they have a deal or anything lined up just yet. I think they're going to try and play him and see if anyone's interested. But given that he's going to be a restricted free agent, he's not going to get more than Larry Nance Jr. is. There should be no way. Or at least I don't think he should necessarily, but another team might. So if someone comes in and offers him 12 a year, 4 years, $48 million, I wouldn't feel good about that. 336, no way. 224, maybe. But you worry about those sorts of things when it comes to all of this. And if you don't want to deal with that and the fact that, everyone is locked up, which means this team is going to be pushing the luxury tax, and the luxury tax was brought up, during media day, saying they'll pay it when the timing's right, but they can't do it every single year. That means guys are going to have to get cut and you're not going to be able to pay everybody. And it feels right now that Jaxson Hayes is that odd person out. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. So while I'm thrilled to have Larry Nance Jr. locked in, I do think that probably means Jaxson Hayes, odd man out. They'll look to trade him if they can, and if not, probably just not even go down that road in free agency with him. So I don't know if anything's imminent or if it's going to even happen at the trade deadline unless you just move him for nothing. But it's hard to see him back on this team next year after this season. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. Now for your next listen, your second listen, Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget about the ultimate pro basketball preview too. I will be on there along with our NBA experts from the Locked On Podcast Network. And as always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. And I'll be back with y'all tomorrow. We got a game. We get to see real Pelicans basketball. I'm excited. Make sure Locked On Pelicans your first listen tomorrow.